and it's their intrinsic
nature. This food basically robs.
Sound feasible, sound like ain't nobody gonna help you. You can go out there, if you're too young to sign up for food stamps, you don't want to go into foster care. You can't sit out there and panhandle for money and beg people for money every day. You might not get it. People might not give you stuff. And who wants to do that as a man? Beg somebody else for money. So you do what you have to do. And that's what's going on in the Black community. And that's what we say, and that's what we use to justify our actions. We say we're doing what we got to do. That's one of the saddest parts about the Black community is you actually got people who want to do positive things but don't have any way of doing so. That they want to change their life, they want to get out, they want to do something good, they want to be successful, but they can't, and you get trapped, you get stuck in your surroundings. And if you homeless, or if you're starving, or you living in poverty, and you got somebody who are around you who got money, who trying to give you something to do to get you to make money, and at that point you really don't care if it's crooked or as long as you ain't killing nobody really, which it does lead to that. But if you can stand on the corner and make some money to better yourself and not look like a bum begging, it's tough for a poor Black person to turn that down. It's tough. You got to do what you got to do, and that's how a lot of people grew up, with that mentality that you gotta do what you gotta do. So that was the first part of their plan, to basically get African American men to fall victim to this whole culture, this hip hop culture, to want to be a rapper, to want to sell drugs, and to want this kind of lifestyle that we fell victim to. Now, as I also pointed out in the previous video I did on destruction of Black men and women, is about how that at the same time you had these record labels popping up with hip hop all over the place, you had these major corporations building these private prisons, and hip hop helped them fill these prisons. A lot of people that is in jail, whether they realize it or not, are there directly due to this hip hop culture and this lifestyle they live, that told them in order to get this success, to get the fame that they want, they need to do these bad things. They need to talk about these bad things. They need to rob and steal and sell drugs. And it landed a lot of us in prison. And as I said, this is by design. You get the Black man out the house. You get the children to disrespect their mom, to disrespect Black women. And this just causes the next generation to spiral out of control, because they have no respect for the women, because their father is not in the household to tell them what's going on, what's up, how to be a man. And a lot of them didn't have their fathers and wasn't raised correctly to know, how to be men. So we have a lot of people in the Black community today who are basically, raised by moms or grandmoms or aunts or what have you. And there's no real positive Black role model in the household to tell these Black children what they need to do, what they need to watch out for, and how they should be treating women and how they should be treating themselves. So this was one of the biggest blows to the Black community and to the African American family. But now, of course, we have, the second real attack was to really destroy Black women, to really destroy the image of Black women, not just in the eyes of Black men, but in the eyes of the children and in their own eyes, to show Black women that there's a certain way they're supposed to act and be. And if you remember C. Dolores Tucker, a lot of y'all remember her. Tupac had a beef with her. C. Dolores Tucker was trying to really tell us these things, and we really didn't know back then that what she was saying had any validity to it. We thought she was just some old Black woman, old-fashioned, who didn't get it, who didn't understand. And when you listen to what she was trying to tell us, it all relates today. And it's almost like, a warning of the future, or what it could be and what's going to happen if we didn't listen to that woman, which we did not. And we can see what happened today. But take a listen to what she was saying.
Today we have all come together to join forces to address the issue of violence in the nation. A violence which has decimated our communities, devastated our families, and destroyed the souls of so many of our youth. It is imperative that we stop the agendas that are not too relevant as this, that we stop pondering over the issue of space exploration, that we stop debating whose diary we should publicize, that we stop arguing over what choices each lifestyle has. For today we must be serious about this serious situation, this plague, this death to our society. Our greatest fear right here in America is not from hurricanes or earthquakes, not from disease or war, but from violence one against the other. We must understand clearly that violence comes in many forms and is acted upon by many sources. Whether we are talking about physical violence, spiritual violence, economic violence, or sexual violence, the end result is the same, the destruction of human life. Enough is enough. And I'd like someone to bring me what made me say enough is enough. Where's my graphic? Bring it up here, please, somebody. I am here to put the nation on notice that violence perpetuated against women through the music industry in the forms of gangster rap and misogynist lyrics will not be tolerated any longer. Principle must come before profit. A year ago, I established the National Political Congress of Black Women's Entertainment Commission, headed by Dionne Warwick, Melba Moore, Terry Rossi of Billboard magazine, and Vaughn Alexander, our director. It had one primary goal: the task of examining and developing strategies and solutions for reshaping and maintaining positive images to preserve the dignity and the heritage of our youth. Instead of continuously exposing our youth to negative media that distorts their images of male-female relationships, that undermines the stability of our families, communities, and nation by encouraging violence, abuse, and sexism as acceptable behaviors, and perpetuates the cycle of low self-esteem of African American youth. Thus, images that degrade our dignity and are an insult to our children, our families, and communities concern us too. And that includes all this gangster rap and misogynist lyrics. Music that glorifies and promotes violence with guns, knives, or drugs, and denigrates and defames women. And with the release of Snoop Doggy Dogg's debut album, Doggy Style, that includes artwork that is nothing but pornographic smut, available to any child to go in and buy with the album and with a record. That has got to stop. You want to know why I'm on the warpath? When I saw this, I said, that's it. We march again, and we're going to keep on marching and demonstrating the truth stuff. For 400 years, profit came before principle, as black women bore the brunt of slave masters' degradation. But even through the Middle Passage, the peculiar institution of slavery, the spirit of black women and their families could not be broken. Today, however, through the lyrics of rappers who display no respect for women, no respect for families, and little respect for themselves, the souls of our sisters are being destroyed, and so too their progeny. All of us have watched as the industry have grown. We have watched not really knowing, not really understanding, not first realizing the damage that is inherent in what some thought were merely words. Now we see the direct and indirect effects. We see the rise in murders, in abuse, in batterings, teen prostitution, and teen suicide. We hear the wailing mothers, the grieving sisters, the tormented brothers and fathers, and children planning their own funerals with pink dresses and pink caskets. We feel their hopelessness and helplessness, and we embrace their pain. Yet in the midst of these tragedies, others still want to argue about the First Amendment right to freedom of speech, a freedom they have embraced to call African American women hoes and bitches and sluts and even worse. As I see it, there are three things wrong with gangster rap and misogynist lyrics. It is obscene, it is obscene, it is obscene. Obscenity has long been an exception to free speech. If the filth that is portrayed in these gangster rap videos and art is not obscene, then I submit that nothing is obscene. In 1992, the Canadian Supreme Court ruled that it was more important to ban speech that is dehumanizing to women than to protect free speech. African American women have always been the protector and nurturers of their homes, their families, and their communities. We march for our rights to Selma. I was there with Dr. King. We're beaten with billy clubs, and we're bitten with dogs unleashed by bull connors. We will not tolerate injustice and insults from our worst enemies then, and we sure ain't gonna accept insults from our youth now.
All right. Okay.
Although the MPCBW condemns the actions of those young people who produce such music, we also realize that we must provide other channels for them to use these multiple talents they have in a positive and wholesome way. After all, they are not the root causes of the complex socioeconomic forces that are manifested in such vile entertainment. Those problems were there long before many of them were born. Those problems must be addressed if the communities that produce those gangster rappers are to survive and thrive. Provide community outreaches so that our youth who have embraced the gangs as their only family will find refuge in community institutions, neighborhood academies, and educational programs. Convert our unused military bases into institutions of peace, where men and women can be trained to become productive citizens who will contribute to the well-being of this nation, expand our nation's infrastructure where needed, and make this nation a powerful global force. I stand before you today with millions of my sisters to say that no one has the right to degrade, denigrate, dishonor, or disrespect African American women. No one has the right to poison our children's mind and destroy our African cultural heritage. That is why the women of NPCBW and our supporters will demonstrate. We'll go to jail again and again and again, just as we did when we demonstrated at the Wiz in December and Sam Goody yesterday. No one and no industry will be allowed to continue this social and psychological genocide of the women and girls of this nation. Stand before you today with the spirits of Sojourner Truth, Harriet Tubman, Fannie Lou Hamer, and Mary McLeod Bethune to say this: we will defy any force that will disrespect us and our families, and I apologize, Mary Berry, my good friend and founder.
Now, when you look at that, back then you would say, well, she just tripping. She don't know what she's talking about. It's just an album cover. It's dogs on the cover. It's not real people. But she got it. She's seen that it was an attack. She's seen how it was sort of like, hip hop was attacking black women, and she was standing up. It's the woman who marched with Dr. King, who really was for, civil rights and for the black community and for the empowerment, the betterment of black women, to make us stand up and be proud of who we are, or who you are, black women, to show you that, you have a voice, you have a say-so on what takes place, not only in your home, but in the black community, instead of just, bowing down to the man and letting the man tell you what you are. Then, of course, when hip hop comes out and just really attacks black women so hard, it's like, she stood up and said something about it, She had her beef with Tupac, and she was really against hip hop music because she understood, it's a weapon, it's an attack against us. I think later on Tupac understood that, and he got that, maybe it's something to what this woman was saying. And, that's probably one of the reasons why he started to change his whole outlook on things towards the end. And, he wanted to start, a black political party, a black, like a Tea Party, but, for black people, somebody in Congress to actually talk about the needs of black people in the black community and to help us have a voice, in Congress. And, he was killed before he could do any of that. So when you look at this attack, to me, it's the worst one. Not just taking the black man out the house, because the black woman is strong enough to raise, as she has proven. She is strong enough in some cases to raise a black man. It was tough for my mom because she was drug addicted, but when my mom got herself together, she was a good mom. She still is a good mom, and she came out of it alone. My dad wasn't around like that, but she did good after she got herself together. And I see a lot of independent, a lot of single moms out there really raising good kids. Kevin Durant, prime example, single mom. Look at Kevin Durant. As a matter of fact, I think Lifetime made a movie about her life and how she raised him. But some people can do it. Some women can't. Some women are weak and they fall victim to this whole culture of hip hop and listening to the music and what the music is telling them they should do and how they should be, and how men are stimulated by a certain type of woman. But that's a negative woman. That's not who they really want to be deep down, but they feel like this is what they have to be. This is the way it is. And, C. Dolores Tucker was really out there promoting women's lib and women's rights. And it's a shame that she died the way, it happened, about, everybody really was coming at her and, was negative against her as far as attacking hip hop, because we didn't understand what it was. Now, one of the arguments I get from white people, I got into a little debate with one of my friends, white guy, about how NWA basically destroyed the black community, how NWA was responsible for, bringing down the black community with hip hop. And as I was pointing out earlier about, you can't really blame them. You got to understand how that whole thing was a setup. Now, maybe they knew that it was a setup and it was a publicity stunt to really get black people to accept gangster rap. But, when you see the interviews of Jerry Heller and, Dr. Dre and them now talking about what happened back then, Jerry Heller's talking about how he went to Capitol Records and went to these other labels, and they basically was like, you can't put this stuff out. Then he went to Priority, and Priority Records was, accepted him and this and that. And how when NWA shot the video, straight out of Compton, sent it to MTV, and MTV was like, hell no, we're not playing this. Now, you got to remember, a lot of people don't realize that whole thing was a publicity stunt to get African Americans to accept this gangster rap. Because contrary to what you may believe, I know it's hard to believe, you had people out there who was really against black people, who was totally against this gangster rap because they can see what it was. So they had to bring us in on it. Do you honestly think if NWA would have just came to this music, it just, bam, it's on all the radios, on the TV, the video, and they talking about murder, killer, drugs, this and that, black people would have stepped back and said, oh, you tripping. They're going to think that's all of us. They're going to think there's something wrong with us. You can't put this music out. We would have protested it, and we did protest it. This is what you don't see. We did protest this music. But when you have Jerry Heller, when you have the story of NWA out there the way that it is, it changes the perception. So when you look back at it, you see that they're saying that the label said no, and then right after MTV said no, we're not going to play your music video. How come it was on the news? How come that made headlines that MTV turned down gangster rap group NWA's music video? Well, I'll put that out there. If they really didn't want people to know about gangster rap or hip hop, if they didn't want to spread it, you most certainly don't put it on national news. You don't put it on TV so people can look at it and say, well, how come they don't want these black people to play their black music on MTV? What's up with that? We remember they didn't want to play Michael Jackson. So that's something to stimulate black people into saying, okay, now I want to play another black group. What's up? What's wrong with their music? It get us to rally behind NWA. Then you look at all of the interviews that followed it. As I said, these are the same companies that own the labels. So you got to peep the trap. All these news companies down there interviewing NWA. And NWA on TV saying the right thing. They saying, oh, well, we just trying to talk about what really goes on. We're just trying to give people the truth about the black neighborhood. It's not gangster rap, it's not promoting drugs, not promoting violence, which it was, of course, to keep it real. But it's just we trying to get our voice out, we trying to be heard. And what happens? You get black people saying, yeah, let the niggas be heard. They trying to stop something that we doing. See, they understand us. They got us figured out. They knew what would stimulate us, what would get us to rally behind gangster rap. And that's what it was. You had a bunch of people telling us that we can't do something as black people. So you have black people listening to this music. First of all, as I just told you, it bypasses all of the defenses of your brain. So automatically when you hear this music and you get this stimulation, and then the beat is bumping and it sounds good, automatically you're going to like it. But when you examine the content, you can't in a conscious mind say that it's good. But that's what's happening, and we're not understanding that in our conscious state, we're not seeing, what it is. You have to be strong and have some kind of control over your brain to really analyze this, these lyrics, this content, and say, hey, something is wrong with this, and it shouldn't be played. And we should have said that from the jump. But they got us suckered into the whole black versus white thing, as they knew that would happen. And Jerry Heller was smart in doing it like this. They even came out and said, I think it was the president or the CEO of Priority Records came out and said himself, the whole thing was a publicity stunt. He said it. I think in the documentary that Chris Rock narrated, he says it in there. He says that it's a publicity stunt to basically bring hip hop in. And that's what it was. You wasn't going to get us to accept it, but telling us we can't have something make us want it even more. And that's what it was. That's an old trick. Tell somebody they can't have something, and then we automatically want it. And that's what happened. So you remember that, that was like 1988 when it came out. 1989, MTV finally plays NWA, and we see him in Yo MTV Raps, and they put out Express Yourself. And that's another video, another song that's deceptive, that gets you to think that, okay, well, they're just expressing themselves. What's wrong with expressing yourself? First Amendment rights. We're just trying to express ourselves and tell our side of the story. Getting black people to accept this music that's destroying us, this gangster music. Getting us to accept that, it's something that's black and it's us. And we're just trying to put our voice out there and be heard and put our story out there when really, it's a weapon that's destroying the black community. And they was really, really brilliant at implementing their plan. And we had no clue what they was trying to do. And we just went with the flow. And like I said, the stimulation that the music creates, a lot of people related to that, especially back then in the 80s when, you could barely get a job. So a lot of people was like, okay, this is something for black people. This is something that we're going to rise and use to rise up. And really it was a trap, the whole time.